The government thought these ideas made a lot of sense, even though some of the economic advisors argued that by using tariffs and subsidies the government harms the economy. And what about the poor, not educated farmers in the developing countries who needed to better their lives and whose only chance is a fair market on which they can compete? That was not the priority, however. They brought the list to the negotiations in the Uruguay round and demanded on the behalf of the farmers in their beautiful country. Some other countries, like Japan and the US, also thought that these ideas made sense, and together they built a strong alliance. After all, no well-dressed politician would want to anger the good old farmers and risk not to be re-elected by the great democracy of public opinion.
On the day when the French farmer read about the Uruguay round, another farmer, a man a lot like him, but yet very different, from the northern part of Mali, harvested his beans. Once ready, his sons helped him carry the bags with beans to the local market, where they sold it to a man who sailed across the sea. On their way home, they didn't have to carry much, only the few coins they got in return to their extremely hard work. Why, was the farmer wondering, why so few? The man who sailed across the sea explained once that it was all he could get because of the price on the world market. The farmer couldn't understand. How can all the other farmers around the world get the same amount of money for their beans as he does, and yet live so much better than him? In reality, they didn't. The farmers in France were selling at much higher prices because they had a strong government protecting them with high import tariffs and supporting them with subsidies.
Years later, the man who sailed across the sea could give the farmer from Mali one more coin for his beans. He explained that there were negotiations between the leaders of the world and that those good men decided to reduce the tariffs so that the farmers can get better money for his beans. The farmer, however, did not think that one coin made such a big difference. The sailor said, "It takes so long, and it's just one coin, because your country is small and powerless when it comes to the negotiations. The farmers from the rich countries have more power, and they are more looked after." On the way home, the farmer sat down on a rock and thought about his future. Could he sell his beans on the villagers' market for more money, or was he supposed to keep on selling everything to the sailor? He smiled when he realized that he maybe could save some money this month and eventually be able to buy some fertilizer to help him grow more beans. But this smile disappeared once he remembered that no one will buy his produce on the market for more money, since the people from the village could not afford it.
That very same day, the French farmer worked at his farm as usual. He thought about that day some years ago when he was so afraid of losing his farm. Fortunately, there had been only small changes for him. But he thought about what was going to happen in the future. He had heard that new negotiations were to come, the Doha round. Some people also said that it was bad for France's economy to support farmers like him, because they could work in more productive sectors. But what did they mean? What could he do but farming? Which, by the way, he did excellent. How was the world going to look like in the future? He was worried for his livelihood. What about the poor farmers, like the one in Mali? No, he already helped them when he sent those 10 euros to the charity, building schools in Africa.
After the completion of the Uruguay round, the members started talking about new negotiations. They wanted to try to take trade liberalization even further, including further agricultural liberalization. They intended to start in Seattle in 1999, but failed to do so due to various reasons, one of which is the fierce protests on the streets. After that, they started the latest round of negotiations in Doha, Qatar, and this round is therefore called the Doha round. They started this round in 2001, but haven't reached an agreement since then, particularly because of some issues they are unable to solve. The most important ones are agriculture, access to patented medicines, special and different treatments, and still the implementation issues of the last round. And these issues have all created a sort of North versus South negotiation stop. The North being US and the European Union, and the South being mostly Brazil, India, China and South Africa and most of the developing countries. Let's talk about these issues one by one. Agriculture has become the most controversial issue. The first proposal in Qatar in 2001 called for the end agreement to commit to substantial improvements in market access. The end agreement should also contain reductions and ultimate elimination of all forms of export subsidies and substantial reductions in trade distorting support. The United States is being asked by the European Union and developing countries, led by Brazil and India, to make a more generous offer for reducing trade distorting domestic support for agriculture, which are the actual subsidies for domestic farming. The US is insisting that the European Union and developing countries agree to make more substantial reductions in tariffs and to limit the number of import-sensitive and special products that will be exempt from cuts. Import-sensitive products are of most concern to developed countries like the European Union, while developing countries are concerned with special products, the goods they don't want to have both their tariff cut and the subsidy reduced because of development, food security, or livelihood considerations. For example, Brazil has emphasized reductions in trade distorting domestic subsidies, especially by the United States, while India has insisted on a large number of special products that would not be exposed to wider market opening. Another major topic at the Doha Round negotiations was the WTO agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, also known as TRIPS. This involves the different interests between pharmaceutical companies and their patents on medicines and the direct emergency need for developing countries for cheap medicines. This issue was solved in 2003 when member governments agreed on a decision to put a special remark in the TRIPS agreement, allowing a member country to export pharmaceutical products made under compulsory licenses to least developed countries and certain other members. As to the point of special and differential treatments, there is a sharp divide between the developing and developed countries, blaming each other for not setting reasonable demands in the negotiation and both not handling in good faith. Fortunately, in 2005, they did agree that the least developed countries should have some special and differential treatment. Concerning the implementation issues, developing countries claim that they have had problems with the implementation of the agreements reached in the earlier Uruguay round because of limited capacity or lack of technical assistance. They also claim that they have not realized certain benefits that they have expected from the Uruguay round, such as increased access for their textiles and apparel in developed country markets. They seek clarification of language relating to their interest in existing agreements. This brings us also to one of the more frustrating issues of these large negotiations. It's really hard to predict what will happen with each country after the Doha round has been completed. It all depends on which model is used and how measures are implemented in these models. All countries participating in the negotiations do expect that there is some economic benefit in adopting the agreement, but how much benefit and who is mainly benefited is still not clear. Estimates range from a $3,000 billion increase in global welfare with $2,500 billion just for developing countries, while others doubt if developing countries will gain anything. With these things unclear, it's really hard to get a Doha round concluded. And of course, because of the strong lobbies in both the European Union and the United States, it's difficult for the elected person to agree to, for example, subsidy cuts which would cause unemployment at home.